Hey guys, Ron White here, two-time USA memory champion. Welcome to the Brain Athlete Show, the Brain Athlete Podcast. Today I'm going to talk to you about why memory is important, what it means to be a memory champion, how you become a memory champion, the mindset of a memory champion. I'm going to give you a little bit of the history of memory training and talk about some common misconceptions about memory, such as multitasking or photographic memory and that kind of stuff. And I will have the timestamps down in the description for where we're going to talk about each of those in this episode, in this podcast. Now, again, my name's Ron White. I'm a two-time USA memory champion. If you have been watching my YouTube channel for any length of time, you know I do short 5 to 15-minute videos where I instruct you on how to memorize something or speed read or whatever. We're still going to do those type of videos on the YouTube channel, but we're adding a little bit of twist. We're adding something new. We're going to do this style where it's more of a podcast style. It's me in front of a microphone and we're talking. Sometimes I'm going to be interviewing people. Sometimes it'll just be me talking like this, but this is what you could call episode 1 of this new show, of the Brain Athlete Show, the Brain Athlete Podcast. Now, I will say that I also have a memory course. It's called Black Belt Memory. I do jujitsu. I'm a big jujitsu MMA fan. And a couple years ago, I was sitting around and my friend said, you know, he does jujitsu. And he said, Ron, Paul Halmy, who is a local, my instructor, one of my instructors, he said, Paul Halmy is a black belt in jujitsu. And then he pointed to me and he said, Ron, you are a black belt in memory. And boom, the light bulb went off in my head. And I'm a black belt in memory. That's it. That's going to be the name of my new course. So I created a course called Black Belt Memory, where I walk you through each of the levels of memory, where you learn names and faces, memorize numbers, memorize chapters of books, memorize poems, memorize quotes, memorize whatever. And you work your way all the way up to becoming a black belt in memory, and you get this cool little certificate that says you're a black belt in memory. It's really cool. If I had it right here, you could see it. You can't see it, but go to blackbeltmemory.com. It's in the description down below, and you can see some of my students holding those. But more importantly, go there to improve your memory. Go there and get my course. Now, let's dive into this episode. Let's dive into this show. Episode 1 of the new format here. So cool, huh? Why is memory important to me? Why have I devoted the last 30 years of my life teaching memory training? And I have 30 years of my life. I know that sounds crazy. I know, because I look like I'm 27 right now, but I promise you I am not, okay? I started when I was 18, add 30 to that and you'll get 48. I started 30 years ago teaching people how to improve their memory and memorize more, and it became a passion of mine. Now here's the question. Somebody asked me this recently. I was on a podcast just 2 or 3 days ago, and somebody said, Ron, why is memory important to you? Why is this important to you? And a light bulb just went off in my head. That's a great question, and that's a question I'm going to answer for you right now. You know, I think it has evolved over time. First of all, it was important to me, and why I was fascinated by it, because I thought it was like a magic trick. You know, I was 18 years old, and I had heard about these memory experts on TV in the 80s. So this was 1991 when I got introduced to memory training. In the 80s, you had a guy named Kevin Trudeau, and he had an infomercial called Mega Memory, and it was huge. I was watching it with my high school friends, and we were like, oh my gosh, how does he do that? Let's put our money together, and let's get the Mega Memory course. And of course, we never did. There was a guy on The Tonight Show in the 80s with Johnny Carson named Harry Lorraine. And Harry Lorraine was on there, and he was memorizing a magazine for Johnny Carson, and he memorized people's names in the audience. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I got to learn how to do that. And I was so fascinated by it, but I never took any action steps. Well, then I'm 18 years old, and I'm a telemarketer, and I'm working for a company that cleans chimneys. And I'm calling every day, hey, can we clean your chimney? 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 And I called this guy one day, and I said, hey, can we clean your chimney? He's like, no, we don't want our chimney cleaned. Thanks for calling. We're selling our house anyways. Goodbye. Have a nice day. And as he was hanging up the phone, I said the words that changed my life. I said, sir, don't hang up the phone. If you're trying to sell your house, you need a clean chimney. He laughed and he said, I don't know about that, but I do need a good telemarketer. And then this was him talking to me. He said, do you want to go to work for me? I sell memory training seminars and I'll pay you more than you're making now. So I started taking down his information, and my sales manager was like, "Oh, did you get a sale?" I'm like, "No, I got a new job." And I went to work for him the next day. Really, maybe, you know what? Maybe it was a couple days later than that. Maybe 3 or 4 days later, I went to work for him. That was 30 years ago. Now, here's the exciting thing, and how crazy is this? How crazy is this? That was July. It was right after the 4th of July, 1991. Guess what this week is? It's right after July 2021. 30 years later, almost to the day, I started doing memory. How crazy is that? We're on episode 1 right now, 30 years to the day. I guess I could have gotten to this a little sooner, right? But why was I passionate about it? When at that moment, when I was 18, I was passionate about it because I thought it was cool. I thought it sounded like a memory trick or a magic trick. I want to learn how to do this magic trick. You know, in the bookstore, you will see memory books and magic books often, you know, right next to each other because there is some similarities there. It is a little bit of magic. When you can look at a deck of cards and memorize it in 60 or 90 seconds, that's magic to some people. So I was interested in it from that perspective. But over time, and this is why I hope this is important to you, because it's so much more than just fun. It's fun. You can play games and impress your friends with memory. But it is so much more than that. Think about this. Your brain is you. Your memory is you. Your recollection of life is you. If what you can remember and the way you see the world, that is really you, your life experiences. So it became to me important in that way. It became to me important to me too because I saw the effect of me on me as a student right away. I was 18 years old going to the University of North Texas, kinda. I mean, I wasn't like the best student, you know, but I was enrolled. And when I went back to school after I had a little bit of a suspension or whatever, I used this memory course, suspension for bad grades. I wasn't a troublemaker really. I just had this theory you could show up and just take the test, and it didn't work out too well. I got suspended for a 0.9 GPA. But I went back, I got a little serious about it, and I went back for a short time. Didn't graduate, but, you know, went back for a little bit of time. Here is the point of all this. When I went back to school, I saw, wow, this can really help me memorize books. This can improve my grades. I can use this to remember names, to build relationships. I can use this to give speeches without notes or help me in my job to remember product knowledge or sales presentations. This can really change my life. Now, you may say, well, Ron, if you've got this at the age of 30 and it really helped you so much, wouldn't college become easy? Why didn't you just finish college? Because I was 18 years old and I got this memory system, and I knew, I was lucky. I knew at that moment, this is what I want to do for the rest of my life, or at least a long time. I'm going to be the memory guy. And guess what? I have been. So I just decided to shift focusing my full attention on memory and the memory business, and that's been my life for the last 30 years. That doesn't mean I don't have a deep desire to learn. I certainly do. And I love learning, read all the time. So there's a deep desire for learning, and that is why memory, honestly, has become so important to me. The more I can remember, the more I can learn. The more I can learn, the more I can earn. The more I can grow, the more I will understand the world about me, around me, and the more I will understand me. Memory, I think, can help you understand yourself, understand the world. You know, Isaac Newton said if he had, I'm going to butcher this quote, but it's something to this effect. If he has seen further than people who've gone before him, it's only because he's standing on the shoulders of giants. In other words, all these science is like a building block. All these scientists did experiments and they created theories, and then Isaac Newton came along and he was standing on their shoulders and he could see further. Well, guess what? The next person stands on Isaac Newton's shoulders and they can see further. And then guess what? The next person stands on his shoulders and they can see further. Standing on their shoulders metaphorically. I believe memory is the same way. You learn something, and if you remember it, you stand on the shoulders of that data and you can see further. Then that data becomes knowledge, and you can stand on the shoulders of that data and see further. This is why I believe memory is important. So I wanted to start off this episode just talking about why memory is important, and that's why. Now, I also said that I'm a two-time USA memory champion. And in this podcast, this episode, this show, whatever you want to call it, I just want to give you an introduction to what we're going to be talking about in the brain. And I want to explain to you what a USA or a world or a memory champion is. So it was about 2003 or 4, and I had heard about memory tournaments, and I'm like, oh my gosh, these guys are crazy. They're memorizing a deck of cards in 2 minutes. They're memorizing a 100-digit number in 5 minutes. That is insane. That is crazy. There's no way I could do that. But this little bug in the back of my ear started thinking, wait a minute, dude, what do you mean you can't do that? Keep in mind, I started speaking on memory in 1991. So now we're 10, 11 years later. After speaking for a decade on memory, I would be standing at the back of the room and people would be introducing me. And they'd say, hey guys, we're so lucky here to have Ron White with us. He's one of the world top memory experts. And as I would walk up onto the stage to give my speech, I started thinking about it and I'm like, what have I done? I'm one of the top world memory experts. What have I done to prove that? And then I heard about this memory championship and there was true memory experts. And I'm like, you know what? I've got to go. I got to go compete against these people. And I have to go compete against these people and win. Then I will have earned the right to say I'm one of the top memory experts. I got to do this. I have to do this. So I set my sights on competing in the USA Memory Championship in 2007. Well, I was also a reservist in the military. One weekend a month, 2 weeks in the summer, I did my reserve duty. And as fate would have it, the United States Navy said, Ron, you are not going to compete in the USA Memory Championship in 2007. We are going to relocate you to the tropical paradise of Afghanistan. And so I spent 2007 in Afghanistan. I didn't get to compete, but during the wartime scenario that I was in over there, at the end of every day, I would train memory training. Not a lot, just a little bit, really just something to distract my mind from the situation that I was at. I returned from Afghanistan in 2007 in December 20th. I remember flying back to the United States on that day. And then I was discharged from the Navy early January, and 8 weeks later, I competed in the USA Memory Championship in 2008. Guess what? I came in 4th place, and I was excited. That excited me. You know why it excited me? I knew that if I could come in 4th place in this tournament, and I had just returned from a war zone for the better part of a year, and these people had been training for a memory tournament with a little preparation, or a lot of preparation, I could win. I could win this thing. I could be the USA Memory Champion. I knew it in my core. I knew it in my heart. So I got myself a memory coach. Everybody needs a coach, and that's why people get my black belt memory course, because they need a coach. I needed a coach in 2008, and I got 2 coaches actually. At the 2008 USA Memory Championship, there was a guy named David Thomas. David Thomas was a former USA Memory Champion. He made a statement at that tournament, and he said, guys, I will coach anybody who wants to win this tournament. I will coach them for free how to win. And nobody took him up on it. Not one person. But I put that in the back of my mind. 3 or 4 weeks later, I emailed him and I said, man, are you serious about that? And he said, yeah, I'm serious. And we did not talk once a week or every day. We talked maybe every 2 weeks. And we really didn't talk. It was all front loaded at the beginning of my training. But he gave me some really good strategies. I remember I was wanting to set the record for the fastest to memorize a deck of cards. And he gave me a strategy on how to do that. And I remember emailing him back like after a week or 2 of trying it out. And I said, David, I've tried out this strategy and I think you're right. I think I can break the record with this. And he replied back, I know I'm right. I'm a bona fide genius. David Thomas has never lacked for self-belief in himself. He's a boisterous guy and he's a great guy. But I began training for the USA Memory Championship. I hired one other person. I hired a United States Navy SEAL. His name's TC Cummings. He's one of my close friends to this day, and he coached me on my mindset, how the mental toughness. And then I just began my training. 90 days out, I gave up alcohol for 90 days before the tournament. Now, you may say, is alcohol 90 days before a memory tournament going to really affect your memory? No, it's not. It was psychological. I wanted to tell myself, hey, you're serious about this. You are taking this serious. Plus, I'll be honest with you, we can all blame this on Chester Santos. Chester Santos was the 2008 USA Memory Champion, and Chester Santos said that he had given up alcohol 90 days before the tournament, and I thought, man, Chester gave up alcohol. I have to give up alcohol, because if he's competing in this tournament and I'm competing in this tournament and I look over there and I see, no, he's doing something different than me, it's going to get in my head psychologically. I can't let him do anything different than me. So I gave it up because he gave it up. Mike Tyson used to say when he was training for a fight, he would get up at 4 a.m. and he would go for a 4 a.m. morning run. And as he was on his 4 a.m. morning run, people were like, Mike, why are you doing this? This is crazy. He said, you know why I'm doing it? I'm doing it because I know my competition isn't doing it. And it gives me that little bit of an edge. So it's kind of a psychological game here. But let's dive into this. Exactly. What is the USA Memory Championship like? What is a memory tournament like? So memory competitions or tournaments really got their stronghold and their foothold back in the early 90s. A guy named Tony Buzan in London started something called the World Memory Championships. And he developed a tournament that had 10 events. I believe it's 10 events in the World Championship. And each event had something different. One event was they would shuffle up a deck of cards, put it on a table in front of you. You would pick it up. You'd look through it as fast as you could. And then you would reassemble a second deck. So the first time you go through it, you're memorizing the deck of cards as fast as you can. Then they stop your time and they give you a second deck of cards, and they give you 5 minutes to reassemble that second deck to match the first deck from memory. The faster you can do it, the better, and you get a score based on how fast you do it. So you got to do it fast, but it also has to be perfect for you to really maximize that event. There's another event with how many numbers can you memorize in 5 minutes. There are events, how many fake history dates can you memorize? Now, they don't make real history dates because then a history buff could just go in there and win that event, right? It needs to be memory. So they make up fake historical events and historical dates. And they got another one with names and faces. And it's just a series of 10 events. And then at the end of the tournament, you know, the person with the best score overall is the world memory champion. Dominic O'Brien is an 8-time world memory champion. You've got guys like Gunther, Karsten, Ben Pridmore, just some genius level guys and ladies who are winning this tournament. Now that I think about it, I don't know if we've had a female world memory champion. We have had a female USA memory champion. Tatiana Cooley is her name. I don't know if we've had a female world. That's something that I should look into. But this World Memory Championship took off. It took off with success. Dominic O'Brien, winning it for the good part of the first decade of its existence. And then Tony Dottino in the United States became friends with Tony Buzan. And Tony Dottino said, I'm going to start a memory tournament. But we're going to do it with a little bit of a USA twist. And the USA twist was that they have 4 events, kind of like the events in the World Championships. And then at the end, they take the top 8 people and they put them in a elimination rounds, like the TV show Survivor, where people were eliminated and the last person standing wins. Same thing with the USA Memory Championship. So they have 4 events in the morning. The 4 events are how many names can you memorize in 15 minutes? How many numbers can you memorize in 5 minutes? How fast can you memorize a deck of cards? And how much of a poem can you memorize in 15 minutes? And you do all of those events. The top 8 move to the next round, which is the Survivor round. And they give you, in the Survivor round, there's 8 people. They give you all the same data. They give you a sheet of paper and you all have the same data. And you go back behind the stage and you memorize it. And then you come back out on the stage, all 8 of you, and you're sitting in chairs. No papers in your hand. There's a microphone. The first person says, oh, by the way, I'm wearing my Mickey Mouse shirt just because I think we should have some fun. All right. I'm kind of mid-podcast is a crazy time to say this, but I'm just wanting to have some fun and set the tone for this is a fun thing. They give the guy the microphone and he says the first word, which might be Mickey Mouse. They pass it to the next guy, the microphone. He says dog, the next one cat, the next one air, the next one camera, the next one water, the next one airplane, and they pass the microphone all the way around. And when somebody gets it wrong, they're eliminated. I think they eliminate 2 or 3 people with that one. Then they have another event, and that event is where people will walk up and they will say their name, their birthday, their city, their state, their zip code, their phone number, the type of pet they have, the color of their pet's name, their 3 favorite foods, their 3 favorite hobbies. 5 people come up and say this, and then 5 people leave, and then they come back up and pull them up. And same thing with a microphone. They go down the row and they ask you questions about these people. And the first person to get 3 strikes to make a mistake is eliminated. And I think they eliminate maybe 2 on that as well. And then they go to the last round where it's, they give you 2 decks of cards, you memorize it, they bring you back on stage, everybody memorized identical shuffled decks, and they pass the microphone down, and the first 2 people who make mistakes are eliminated, and the last person standing is the USA Memory Champion. It is a fun style of tournament, but that is how you become a memory champion. There are tournaments for this, all right? My friends used to say, dude, are you training for a memory tournament or a nerd tournament? And I won in 2009, and they were like, you're king of the nerds. So in a sense, they were right. My fellow nerds hate when I call it that, but I don't think nerd is always a direct derogatory term. You don't have to be, you don't have to be a recluse, or you don't have to be unsociable or whatever to be categorized as a nerd. And I don't even know if I would say I'm a nerd, but for that tournament, I like to say I was king of the nerds. All right. I won in 2009 and 10, and then I became in second place in 2011 and 2012. And then I just said, it's just time to retire from this. I got other stuff that I want to do and other stuff that I want to move on to. And my thought process behind that was, let's say I want to memorize the United States Constitution, which I ended up doing. It's 4,543 words, and I wrote it out on a wall. My logic from stepping back to the memory tournaments was, in part, the competition was getting tougher. All right, let's just be candid. The competition was getting tougher. I was getting beat, although I came in second place 2 years in a row. I was still getting beat. And that is a lot of effort to put into something and not win it, especially when you're a businessman and you got a business to run too, and you're taking off a significant amount of time to train for a tournament that you might not win. So I stepped back from it and started doing things that there was nobody trying to stop me. It was just up to me. Am I going to memorize the Constitution or am I not? Okay. And I did memorize the United States Constitution and wrote it out on a wall. And now that doesn't mean I'm not going to go back to a memory tournament. I still have a bucket list style goal. And this bucket list goal is I want to memorize a deck of cards in under 60 seconds at a memory tournament. I've done it in 1 minute and 1 second is my fastest time. Matter of fact, I did it at a bar just a block from here called Jake's Hamburgers. I was sitting at the bar there and I memorized it, and then I set it down and I pushed the timer and I'm like, oh my God, I just got a deck of cards in 1 minute and 1 second. And all the other alcoholics at the bar was like, dude, hey, we're trying to drink here. All right, come on. This, leave us alone. So nobody saw it. Nobody knew. One day, bucket list. I want to memorize a deck. So I might return to a memory tournament just to cross that off my list under 60 seconds. And that's a good place for memory tournaments for me in my mind. Fun from now on out. But it was also a good benchmark for me, a place that I could compare myself to in the future. Here's the mindset of a USA memory champion. And I don't even know if this is the mindset of a memory champion or just the mindset of a champion. I had to go in my head into a place where I felt worthy of winning the USA Memory Championship. Have you ever seen these people running a relay race or in some athletic event and they're winning? They are winning. They are going to be the clear-cut winner. And just as they're about to cross the finish line, what do? They do something to sabotage themselves because they don't feel worthy of winning. Deep down, subconsciously, they're not even doing it consciously. They're running and then they trip and fall and they lose the race because they got overwhelmed and it just overloaded the circuits on their brain and they lost control of their legs or whatever. Now, it could have just been a physical mishap, but sometimes it's a mental mishap. We feel unworthy of winning. We feel unworthy of the reward, so we sabotage ourselves. And I did not want that to happen. I didn't want to be up on that USA Memory Championship stage and begin feeling unworthy of winning, unworthy of being the champion, and do something that would unconsciously sabotage myself by making a stupid mistake. And then boom, you make a stupid mistake, all the pressure's off, and you get to walk off the stage. Cool, huh? Well, cool for 2 seconds. But then it's terrible for a year because you got to live with that for a year until the next tournament. So I hired a Navy SEAL, and I'm like, TC, how can I get this out of my head so I don't sabotage myself? And we just went through a process of really helping me believe in myself. We made a list of all the successes that I have had in my life in the last 30 years. And we wrote all of these successes down. And some of stupid or silly is I got the Spanish award in my Spanish class in 9th grade. In 11th grade, I got the game-winning hit in a softball game, that's in my PE class, which is the highest level of athletics I achieved, okay? Until I started doing jiu-jitsu. But I wrote down all these little successes to build my belief in myself. We also did things like TC said, Ron, how are your competitors training for this tournament right now? I said, well, they're training in total silence, perfect conditions. They're sitting at the kitchen table with the radio and the TV off. He said, that's not how a Navy SEAL would train. A Navy SEAL would train with everything going wrong, with chaos all around him. He said, because we have a saying in the SEALs, the more you sweat in times of peace, the less you bleed in times of war. Let me say that again. The more you sweat in times of peace, the less you bleed in times of war. And what that means is the Navy SEALs make their training so difficult, they make it so tough that when they get to war, they don't just win, they dominate because their training was so difficult. He said, Ron, you're going to get plastic playing cards, snorkel gear, and you are going to memorize cards underwater. I am not kidding you. Imagine this. You are at the swimming pool, and this guy at the pool walks out in snorkel gear, a wetsuit, and plastic playing cards. He dives in the other pool, memorizes a deck of cards, comes out of the water, reassembles it right there. What are you thinking of this guy? That's what I was worried about. What are these people going to think of me? And then I got to a point where I'm like, dude, you can't care what other people think. If you care what other people think, you are not going to win this tournament. So I memorized cards underwater. I got to the point where I could memorize a deck of cards underwater faster than anybody else in the United States could do it above water at the tournament. When the tournament arrived in 2009, March of 2009, I didn't just win, I dominated. 90 days before the tournament, I wrote out several goals. My 3 goals were, I will memorize a deck of cards in under 90 seconds, which would have been a record. I will memorize a 167-digit number in 5 minutes, which was also a record. Very specific, too. I will become the USA Memory Champion. Guess what happened? I memorized a deck of cards in under 90 seconds. I memorized a 167-digit number exactly in 5 minutes, and I became the USA Memory Champion. I was very clear on my goals. I worked very intently on my goals. When I walked into that tournament that morning, I walked over to the trophy. I looked at it, and I said, you're going home with me. And it wasn't arrogance or cockiness, and at least I hope it wasn't. It just, I knew I had out-prepared everybody at that tournament. I knew it. Before the tournaments, a lot of people will be trying to size up the competition, and they'll say, so how did you do on memorizing a deck of cards in your training? How are you feeling about numbers? In other words, they're trying to size each other up. I would answer those questions, but guess what? And I didn't really realize this that day. I realized it later. I did not ask one person. I did not ask one person how their training had been. Why? Because I didn't care. I knew if I hit my numbers, I would win the tournament. And that's a big lesson there. And that lesson is focus on you. Just do your job. Do what you got to do. If you're a student in school, focus just on your grades, on your test results, on what you need to learn, what you need to memorize, and stop worrying about, hey, how did you, unless you're asking it for help or to encourage one another, don't worry about other people's progress. Focus on you, and you might just surprise yourself. So that's what a memory tournament is. That's kind of the mindset of a memory champion. Now, I want to touch on a little bit on the history of memory training. And this, I want you to see this episode as show one, as somewhat of a building block process that's going to launch our time together, okay? So I'm kind of laying the foundation for a lot of stuff here. And then on the upcoming shows, we're going to dive really deep into this. But here's a little bit of the history of memory training. First of all, I want to say this is the earliest recorded date of somebody saying, hey, I'm going to teach memory training. Okay. And it could have gone back. I've read research that says the Aboriginals in Australia had memory systems, or it goes back even further, maybe to the ancient Egyptians. Maybe there was the hieroglyphics could have been a memory system, according to some people, the archaeologists. It's not necessarily 100% fact, but it certainly could have been. But the father of memory training today is a guy named Simonedes. Simonedes lived in Greece 2,500 years ago, and he developed a memory method back then called the method of loci. Today we might call it the memory palace or the mind palace. And essentially it's where you use a room to memorize data. You use a room to memorize information. Here is the beginnings of this system. 2,500 years ago, Simonedes he's a poet. And this really rich person, by the way, I'm going to say to you right now, I don't know if this story is 100% true or not, but it's on the internet, so I'm going to assume it's true. I don't think they can put stuff on the internet that's not true. Now, I will say this, all joking aside, I will say this, that Cicero had some writings about 2,000 years ago, 500 years after Simonedes. Cicero, in his writings Ad Herennium, tells the story exactly the way I'm about to tell it to you. So if this is not a true story, it's been a false story for at least 2,000 years. Here's the way Cicero tells it. Simonedes is a poet. He is asked to recite a poem for a really rich person. He goes into this banquet hall, he recites this poetry, and he says the poetry for this really rich person. The really rich person asks him to leave. He leaves the banquet hall, he goes outside, and when he goes outside, the roof collapses and it kills everybody in the banquet where Simonedes was. Well, they asked Simonedes to go back in and identify the bodies later. And Simonedes said, well, that person was sitting there, 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 that person was sitting there. In other words, he remembered these people based on location, of the spot in a room, based on where they were sitting. The light bulb goes off in his head, and he said, wow, I wonder if I can remember anything based on a location in a room. And so he went back home and he started numbering spots around his house. And then the next time he wanted to memorize something, instead of imagining people around a room, he imagined, for example, if he wanted to remember number one was a bottled water. I don't think they had bottled water back then. So let's say a glass of water. And his number one location in his house was his microphone. He would imagine water pouring out on the microphone. If his number two location was the TV, it probably wasn't. But if, he would imagine, the second word he wanted to memorize was a dog, he'd see a dog jumping through the TV set there. So he used locations to memorize data. And I'm not going to go into real deep into this because on our next podcast, or our next episode, or next show, whatever, I'm actually going to dive real deep into it. So just watch the next episode if you want to go further. But he is known as the father of memory training. And over the next 2,500 years, Cicero used this in Greece Cicero. I guess he was in Greece. We need to investigate that. Cicero used this speech to Italy, to give speeches in the Senate or whatever, to give speeches and presentations without notes. So this system has evolved over the last 2,000 years. I have some memory books going back about 500 years. There were books on memory 500 years ago, and people have just evolved and taught different styles, and now I'm teaching a style. my black belt memory course where I've taken it and made it my own. This is what it means to be a memory champion. This is a little bit of the history of memory training, and this is the mindset of a memory champion. The last thing that I want to talk about on our talk today is a little bit of misconceptions about memory. You know, a lot of people say that they have photographic memories. And this is somewhat of a misconception. I think when people say they have a photographic memory, what they really mean is they just have a really good memory, okay? It's very rare that somebody can look at a book, their mind take a photograph-like image of it, and then recall exactly what's on that page. You know, like the Rain Man type thing. That's just, it hasn't been proven to be true unless it's just extremely isolated cases. there's a guy named Stephen Wilshire, and they got him up in a helicopter and they flew him around Rome, and then they flew the helicopter and then they set it down, and he got a mural and he painted out exactly what he saw on this mural. That is a photographic memory. So I think when people say, Ron, can I develop a photographic memory? I don't know if you can. No, you can't if you don't have this natural gift already. But you can learn memory systems to remember a lot more than you think. Multitasking, I think, is another common memory myth where people think, oh, Ron, I can do two things at once just as good. I'm great at multitasking. If you think you're great at multitasking, try this. Write out the numbers on a sheet of paper, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. And then right below it, I am great at multitasking. I am great at multitasking. And time on a timer, how long it takes you to write that. Then do it again, but multitask while doing it. Write out the number 1 and then I. The number 2, am. The number 3, great. The number 4, at. The number 5, multitasking. The number 6, and then start over. I. Number 7, am. The number 8, great. The number 9, at. Number 10, multitasking. And write it out and multitask. Try to do it at the same time. I guarantee you're going to be slower. You're going to be 2 or 3 times slower, maybe 4 times slower. We are always better. We are always more focused when we are not multitasking, when we're doing one thing at a time. How well do you think I would have done on this episode today if I was doing the episode and doing jujitsu at the same time? Now, I'll be honest with you. I do jujitsu with some guys, and they can have conversations while they're rolling. That's what we call it, while they're rolling with me, and beat me and have a conversation, and it is very demoralizing that they're able to multitask to me. But that just means I need to step up my game. But the mind is better when it multitasks. There are some other misconceptions that memory training is too much work and that kind of stuff, but we're going to dive into that on our next episode, next show, next podcast. Today, what I wanted to do on this one is just to give you an introduction into memory. Just talk to you a little bit about what memory is about, who I am, the memory championships, what it takes to be a memory champion. I wanted to make sure I told you about my black belt memory course too. If you want to really, 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 really improve your memory, click the link down below. Get my black belt memory course. I have a free gift there for you. It is exactly what you need to take your memory to the next level, but also earn a black belt in memory. Go to blackbeltmemory.com. See their certificates. People holding their certificates. I want you to join that club. I want you to be in that club where my other students who have black belts in memory. Nothing delights me more than awarding black belts in memory. If you got any value out of this video at all, I do hope that you give it a thumbs up and that you give it a like. A lot of platforms are going to give us credit for that. The video on YouTube here will give us some juice. Tell YouTube it's a good video. And I want you to comment down below and tell me what you would like me to focus on this podcast. What kind of things do you want me to talk about? Do you want me to interview people? Type a name below down to somebody you want me to interview. Do you want me to teach something about memory? Type that down below. I'm going to let you help guide me on exactly what we're going to do on the Brain Athlete Show. My name is Ron White. I am a 2-time USA memory champion. I'm looking forward to this new style. We're going to keep this the same ones. We're keeping the same ones. We are not going anywhere with those. We're just adding to the value that we're bringing you. I'll see you on the next episode, show, podcast, whatever we're calling it.